Shalom everyone, and a very happy Lag BaOmer to you. Lag BaOmer is the 33rd day of the Omer, the 7 weeks of the counting that we do between Pesach, Passover, and Shavuot, Festival of Weeks, a period of growth, of regeneration, of hope, waiting, counting down to receive the new Torah. And this is a special day. It's the passing day of the Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the Kabbalist, who gave us the gift of the inner dimension of the Torah. Without him, it would just have been the revealed surface level of the Torah. We wouldn't have had the secret level, the sod, the raz, the inner dimension of the Torah. He blessed us with it. And so on this day, it's like the pre-giving of the Torah. We first get the soul of the Torah, and then in a few weeks' time, we're going to get the full body, the full manifestation of the Torah with the giving of the Torah. And this is a wonderful opportunity to ask a very important question, which is, what is the expansion of consciousness? Spiritual growth is all about expanding our mind, expanding our consciousness, widening our viewpoint, our field of vision, so that we can have a greater vision, that more aspects, more dimensions are included in this field of vision. And we want to get a better understanding of what do we mean by this? What do we mean by expanding consciousness, by broadening our minds? And we want to refer to the inner dimension of the Torah, to the Torah of Kabbalah. And we're actually moving from Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who lived about 2,000 years ago, to a much later Kabbalist who lived about 500 years ago, and his name is the Arizal. Arizal is short for the divine Rabbi Isaac of Luria, of blessed memory, the greatest Kabbalist by all measures, lived in the 16th century, and he expounded upon the Zohar, the major treatise that's ascribed to Rabbi Shimon, and he gave us the complex, mature, later Kabbalah that was accepted by almost all branches of Judaism. Of course, he taught the last two years of his life in Tzfat, in the Galilee, and he's buried there, very close, by the way, to where Rabbi Shimon is buried. And he explained that this period of time, the counting of the Omer, it's all about transitioning from a state of small-mindedness or smallness to a state of great-mindedness or greatness. And he delineated for us a 4-stage process or cycle of growth that has become emblematic of all cycles of growth according to Kabbalah. And it's very good to learn this, to know this, especially as it's very much connected to the counting of the Omer. The counting of the Omer is when we transition from a almost an infantile state of mind that's associated with Passover. Passover, we are born. Egypt is like the womb of the Israelites, and we are born in Passover, and then we grow and mature until we are able to stand on our own 2 feet at the foothills of Mount Sinai and receive the Torah. So this is a journey of maturation, and so he delineated the 4 stages. Now their names are very, very simple. They're called smallness A, greatness A, smallness B, and greatness B, right? So there's an initial smallness of mind, then we reach a certain state of greatness, but that is only the 2nd stage out of 4. Then we go back to a state of second smallness, and then we once again mature and expand into a second kind of greatness. The most simple image or metaphor you can have in your mind is of 2 mountains that you have to climb, but it's one after the other. So once you climb one of them, you have to go down a valley before you can climb the mountain after that. You may not even see that valley in the beginning. It only seems like one mountain, but as you reach the first peak, you realize you have to go to the valley. There's a second smallness, a second descent before the ascent. So you start at the bottom of the first mountain, and then you go up the first peak, that's the first greatness, then you go down, and then you go up to the second greatness, the second mountain peak. The most simple example of where we see this in our lives is in the very first stages of our own growth as we come into being. We begin the pregnancy as just a fertilized egg, just a seed, a kernel. This is the initial first smallness. Over the period of 9 months of pregnancy, we grow until we become a fully developed fetus. This is the first greatness. And then we are born, and then everyone says, Mazel Tov, it's a baby, and this is celebrated as the birthday, the beginning of everything, because this is the end of the pregnancy, but the beginning of life. So this is, although the fetus has emerged, and they're crying, and they're taking their first breath, but this is the second smallness, because they're only a toddler baby who begins the period of breastfeeding. And then over this period, it grows until it weans from the breastfeeding, and it's able to chew its own food, and it achieves a certain independence, and this becomes the second greatness. Now, obviously, it doesn't end there. It's just a baby who just weaned from breastfeeding, and the whole journey begins. So in the whole idea is that this 4-stage model repeats itself again and again. Life is an endless spiral of growth. So then life just begins, and then you grow until you become, let's say, bat or bar mitzvah, and this is now your second greatness. But it turns out to be just the first greatness, because you're only a little teenager, and you have to realize you're young again, you're small again, you mature until you can marry, and then once you marry, you realize you haven't learned anything, you don't know anything. And you mature again until you become a parent. And then once again, you feel like a little child, you have no experience, and then you start experiencing those stages again with your children. And of course, you yourself don't stop maturing and growing, and so on. You can think about the experience we all have of transitioning from grade school to middle school to high school. Every school, we get to the top year, the senior year, and we feel that we are the most adult, the most mature. Everyone around us is younger than us. And then we go up a grade, but in our sense, in the way we experience it, we have sort of fallen to a second smallness. We are now the youngest in the school. We are the freshman students, and so on. So this is the basic model. Now, if the Arizal would have said, just think about 2 stages. Just think about smallness and greatness, and then just play it on repeat. Just do it again and again, it wouldn't have worked, because we would just say, okay, well, that's how it is. You become great, and then you realize you don't know anything, you become small again, and it's just one long wave. But the fact that he delineated the 4 stages emphasizes that there is a post-greatness smallness. It's different. Getting to the stage of the second smallness that comes after the first greatness. It's not a cycle. We're not going back to the clueless stage of not knowing anything, not understanding anything. It's a second kind of smallness, which is just this disorientation in which we have to sort of gain our composure, but we are prepared because we have the knowledge from the first greatness to carry us through this stage, right? There's a residue of the wisdom, of the learning that we've acquired in the first greatness that is there with us in the second smallness, in that dipping, in that valley post the first mountain, and then we muster up the strength and the courage and the confidence based on that previous great state of mind, and then we can climb up the second peak. So, and of course, that stage of transitioning from a state of greatness or maturity or understanding to a state of mind of I don't really know, I don't really understand, that's the most crucial and interesting stage in this whole 4-stage process. Now, let's just get a feel for this. Let's flesh this out a little bit, right? So the first stage is of everything. Let's say you're learning something, right? And you're trying to get a grasp of it. So at the beginning, you don't really know what's happening. Everything is new for you. You learn it, and you don't know what it is, what it means, but you have a certain faith. You have this driving force that you can conquer this field of knowledge, body of knowledge, and you go into it. But think about it, whatever it is that you're learning, that you're aspiring to. In the beginning, you don't know anything, but you have this faith. This is the main characteristic of the first smallness, is that you have this kernel of faith that you can do it. Then you learn, and you grow, and you understand, and then you achieve the first greatness, which is all about understanding the theory of things, but you don't have any practical experience. You just know the theory. You read the books, you read the history, you understood what it works, you understand, what are the different parts of this, whatever it is, system that you're learning. If we're talking about spiritual growth, you have this theoretical understanding that there's God in the world, and there's spirituality, there's the mind, there's the soul and the body. We have this body of knowledge, but we call it a body of knowledge, but it's just knowledge. It's just theoretical, and you haven't really experienced whatever it is that you have studied. Then as you enter the practical field, let's say you studied the theory of driving, and then you actually go into a car and you're on the road, or you actually go from medical school to medical practice, or whatever it is that you learned. At the third stage, you start the actual practice, and then you realize that all the knowledge that you had, it was all very theoretical, it was all in the books, it was based on other people's experience, and as you're experiencing it, you have this feeling of you fall, you dip, you realize you have no real experience, but now what you do have is you're starting to build up the confidence. We said that in the first smallness it was about faith. Now it's not just faith, because you have learned some things and they are there to back you up. Now it's all about gaining the confidence needed in order to climb the new mountain, which is the mountain of the practical knowledge. And then you achieve a state of the second greatness, which is not just learning in your head or learning at school, but learning in let's call it the school of life, and the actual experience, the work experience. Or if we talked before about divine service, serving Hashem, spiritual work, in the first mountain was all about, you have a knowledge, a sort of conceptual knowledge of spiritual concepts. But when you go to the valley, the second smallness, you're really facing the challenges of life, and that really tests your spirituality and your learning. And then in the second peak, you can say that you really understand what God is, what the soul is, because you passed through some trials and some difficulties, and you overcame them, and you matured, right? Okay, so all this is just the basic understanding of this 4-stage model that the Arizal gave us, and this is stuff that I've encountered many times, and we've learned this many times. But now comes the second level to all of this, a new dimension, new way of understanding this that is brand new. It was very recently, Rav Yitzchak Ginsburg, my rabbi, he taught this at the Seudat Mashiach, the meal of Mashiach, which we do at the last day of Pesach. And it's a very festive, special meal, and there's always new amazing Torot that, every shiur that Rav Ginsburg gives, he gives this amazing stuff. But this one, he added a new way of understanding this 4-stage model. So the question that he posed, right? You have a new question, then you get new answers, you get new understanding of things. So he said, how can we apply the 4-stage model to the stages of time, the dimension of time? Usually when we think about time, we think about past, present, future, right? We have the past behind us, we are now in the present and the future. But it doesn't really work with the 4 stages, first because it's 3 levels or parts of time, and also because it doesn't really go with those stages. So then he said, there is a clue. The clue is that there is this Jewish idiom or saying, which is basically, it's bits out of 3 different verses in the Bible that were put together. We say this in the morning prayers. We say this in a Brit Milah. We say this people say this in Havdalah, in Hallel. And the expression is Hashem Melech, Hashem Malach, Hashem Yimloch Leolam Va'ed. Translated, it means God is king right now. God was the king, or has reigned in the past. God will reign, will be king in the future. And then the final 2 words are Leolam Va'ed, forever and ever. Right? So basically it's a new model, an unintuitive model for relating to time. It starts with the present, Hashem Melech, right now. Then it goes to the past, Hashem Malach, God reigned in the past. Then all of a sudden it jumps forward, looking out to the future, and it says Hashem Yimloch, God will reign in the future. And then the final 2 words, it's 8 words altogether, the final 2 words are Leolam Va'ed. This is above time. This is something like eternity or timelessness. Right? Very interesting model. Present, past, future, eternity. And the new interpretation, the new understanding that Rav Ginsburg gave us is that you can correspond, you can connect the four growth stages that the Arizal spoke about with those four levels. That somehow the first smallness has to do with the present, the first greatness has to do with the past, the second smallness, the valley, has to do with the future, and the second greatness has to do with eternity. So what does that mean? Let's go stage by stage, and you'll see just how beautiful it is. When you are in a state of smallness, in a state of narrow-mindedness, in a way you are locked in the moment, in the now. You're surviving. You're living day to day. You're like, think about like a little animal, a little baby. All they think about is what is going now. They don't have a good perception of time. And this could be us when we are in just surviving and thinking about today. How do we get past today? For some people, this is like an ideology. They say like hedonistic ideology. They say, you should live as if there's no tomorrow. You shouldn't think about the future. You shouldn't think about the past. And this is very romantic, but it's also very childish. It's a childish state of mind. It's true that as many spiritual guides, there's a famous book, The Power of Now. It's true that some people are not at all present in the moment, and we have to be present in the present moment. And it's also a big present to be present. That's a gift. It's three meanings. But the idea is that it is a good starting point. The first smallness, the smallness is not a bad thing. It's just a first stage. So the first smallness is that you're present in the moment, but if you're stuck there, if you don't advance, then you are very much locked into this tiny perception. In many ways, the modern man, the modern age, lives in this island of the present. The consciousness of history has very much dwindled in modernity, because modernity posited itself so much as a negation of the past. And the past is the Middle Ages, it's primitive, and now everything is new, everything is happening now, there's new technology every moment, so we are living in the present. This is the first smallness, a kind of narrowness of a very narrow horizon. The first greatness, the first way to expand is to learn the past, to look at the past, to realize you weren't born today, you have past experience, you've learned some lessons, you can apply them, you can rely on them. It's not just your own personal history, you come from a family, there's a family history. You have parents, they've accumulated some experience, talk to them. And it's not just that, you can go back to your grandparents, and you can go back to the history of your nation and learn the history of your nation. Realize you don't have to invent the wheel. The world wasn't born yesterday. Maybe you were, but the world wasn't. And there's so much to learn from the past. There's inherited wisdom. There's time-tested principles. So the first expansion is opening up to the past. Very beautiful, right? So the first smallness is that you're just obsessed with the present, and then the first greatness, the first expansion of mind, is to learn about the past. However, notice, this is only the first two stages. You're just in the first half of the journey. And this is, in many ways, although the second stage is about greatness, the whole thing is still narrow in comparison to where you can still go. Why? Because you're dealing with what is. What is now, what was. It's all about what already is. It's the familiar. Now, as you're turning your gaze into the future, all of a sudden you're standing before the unknown. And this is the second valley. This is the drop. This is the fall to a second kind of smallness. Because although you are an expert on the past, you know nothing. No one knows nothing about the future. And you have to navigate the future. You maybe have to create the future. And this can weaken your mind, can disorient you a little bit. But it's so beautiful that turning into the future, this is the second smallness. And really what it means is that this is the crossroads where you have to decide, borrowing a term from the world of management, of business, they differentiate between a manager and an entrepreneur. A manager manages. He manages the company that he has, that he inherited or that he built, And he keeps it as it is, and he makes sure it doesn't collapse, it doesn't deteriorate, and he keeps it alive, but he doesn't make it really grow. For that, you need to be an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is someone who can envision something that isn't there yet. And for that, you have to look forward. Basically, what gets you out of the valley into the second mountain is as you look up into the mountain, you look towards the horizon, and you can see in your mind's eye the second mountain peak, the second greatness, which in itself is above time. You have to connect to some eternal values, an eternal vision, or a vision rooted in something timeless. And you have to say, I want to reach that. I want to connect. I want to manifest that timeless value or principle or purpose my way. And that's what I want to strive. So just by holding in front of your head the second mountain peak, the second greatness, which is the fourth stage, which is all about something that's beyond time, then you can navigate through the future, and gradually you grow there, you go there. You can think a little bit about what happens when we're climbing a ladder. When we're climbing a ladder, we use all four of our limbs to climb, but there's a difference between what the legs do and what the arms do. The legs are pushing the lower rungs, and they're pushing against gravity, against where I'm coming from, against the past. They're pushing away the past and propelling me towards the present. But what I do with my arms is something else. I'm not pushing, I'm pulling the next rung. I'm not pushing away the old rung, the previous rung. I'm pulling the next rung. So with my legs, with the lower half of my body, I'm pushing away the past. With my arms, the upper part of my body, I'm pulling the future into the present. And then I'm leveraging myself upward towards this future, right? So the first two levels are all about dealing with the past. I start in the moment, and then I learn from the past, I propel myself forward from the past, and then I start looking into the future, and I get a kind of vertigo. There's a vertigo, there's a fear of heights from looking down, but there's also a fear of heights from looking up, that I don't know where I'm going. It's the unknown. And then I use my arms, and I sort of pulling, I'm holding my eyes to the vision, the future vision, and I'm pulling it towards me, and by that I'm lifting myself upwards, right? So, and of course, what helps me is the experience from the past, right? Again, in the second smallness, I'm not starting from nowhere. I have all the things that I learned, but they were only theoretical. Now I have to apply them in a new way, in an original way, looking into the future. Okay, so now let's give two examples for this. One very simple, very universal, we all know this, and the other one I'm going to expand a little bit and talk about the state of the Jewish world today. But the first example is very personal, very simple. We're going to talk about the stages of transitioning from a learner to a teacher. Right? Very simple. And this will demonstrate in a beautiful way how the four stages beautifully align, like I said, with present, past, future, timelessness, right? So the first stage is when you're a beginner student. Let's think about a guy coming into a yeshiva, and he hasn't learned a lot of Torah, and then someone gives him this beautiful Torah idea or Hassidic idea, a new Torah, a new style of learning, a new world of wisdom that he doesn't know. And that little Torah that he gets, this is like a whole world for him. He has never encountered something like this. So he's living in the moment. He's seeing this one Torah. He doesn't know where it came from. He doesn't have the context, but he gets this Torah, and the beginner student is very much in the moment, in the present. There's a new Torah. This is everything that he knows. It's a whole world for him, and he goes into it. But then he spends some more time in the yeshiva, and he learns, and then he opens more books, and he sees where the Torah came from, and he sees other Torahs from the same Rebbe, and he learns the history, and he learns the previous generations, and he becomes an expert in the past. And he has this whole library, this whole archive, and he's learning from it. And then he reaches this first greatness, which is being a master of the past. Also, he repeats what he learns in order to memorize it. So it's all about going backwards and understanding where that original idea that caught him, that appealed to him, that moment was just the present moment, where it came from, the history of it and the context of it. And this is the second greatness. This is the advanced student. So the first two stages, the first half is being a student. Now he wants to be a teacher. He wants to teach others. So now he's preparing a class. This is the third stage. In the third stage, the second smallness is future-oriented. Why is it future-oriented? Because as you're preparing a class, you're thinking about your future student. That tomorrow, the next day, you're going to sit in front of a classroom. There's going to be the students, and you're laying out your class. You have to decide what comes first, what comes next, and you're planning and you're thinking and you're imagining the future class that's going to happen. It's all future-oriented. And why is it smallness once again? So it's not the first smallness. I'm an advanced student now. I've learned so much. But now I have to go into the mindset of my student, and my student doesn't know anything. I have to focus on one idea. I have to select one idea and focus on that and explain that from A to B to C. And so I'm going into the small-mindedness, but it's a small-mindedness of the teacher trying to get into the mindset of the student. And so it's future-oriented, but it's small because I have to focus on one thing and make sure the student gets that. And then, what is the fourth stage that has to do with transcending time in some way? This is the teacher at the moment of teaching. When he's there in front of the class, and this is the money time, this is the moment. In a way, it's all about the moment, it's right now. But he has all this background, he learned everything, and in a way, if he's a good teacher, a good speaker, he wants to be connected to God as he's speaking, connected to something timeless. And he's there, and he's trying to be in a state of cleaving, in a state of devotion, in a state of connection, so that he is truly true to what he's saying. He's honest, it's authentic words that are coming from his mouth. So he's there, and the beautiful thing is that this is a second greatness. Why? Because as every teacher knows, if you have really prepared and you're there in front of the class or the audience and you're present in the moment and you have this connection, this cleaving, this devotion, you get new ideas and new insights as you speak. And in a way, you've connected something above time. Also, this is, by the way, the reason that many speakers and teachers lose the sense of time as they're speaking. And it's not like that always. Usually they have a very good sense of time. But once they're there on the stage, they start speaking, they totally lose their sense of time because they're now at the second peak, at the second greatness, which is they're speaking in the moment. So beautiful, beautiful example. 2 stages as learner, 2 stages as teacher. And each one of them has the smallness and then the greatness, and it corresponds beautifully. Now, the second example is more broad, has to do with the state of Judaism in our generation. I think in many ways, when we're looking at the revival of Judaism today, I'm thinking both of what's going on in the state of Israel, the whole idea of the Jewish people coming back to its land and regaining some independence, and thinking about coming out of the diaspora in a meaningful way of having their own state and their own army and so on. And also thinking about generally the state of Judaism. Judaism as a religion, both of them, it applies. In a way, the first smallness is what happened as a result of the crisis or the earthquake of secularization, the Haskalah movement. The Haskalah movement and secularization and the early secular Zionists, it was all about negating the past. The past is wrong. The past made us passive. It made us the victims of pogroms and then the Holocaust, and we went like a lamb to the slaughter, and no more of that. We have to negate the diaspora and negate the past. And although they spoke about the future and it was all about giving the state to the future generations, they didn't really envision the future much. There was the Altneuland book by Herzl, but even there, if you read it, it's mostly about being the negative image of the diaspora. It was, let's just normalize, let's just be a normal nation like the French, like the German, and not be in the state of diaspora. So even their future vision was really a reversal of the past, which really means they lived in the moment. And most revolutions do this, by the way. They don't have a clear vision of the future. They just dislike the past. And so revolutions tend to reject the past and live in the moment, and basically it's trial and error from then on. And the result, I said this before generally about the modern man, that modern man is so he's rootless. He's disconnected from his traditions, from the past. And the same goes for the modern secularized Jew. I know, because that's how I grew up. I had a whole world, I had everything. But in terms of my Jewishness, I was a bit rootless, a bit disconnected, and not knowing about my own past, not knowing about where I'm coming from. And it was this is the first smallness of living in the present. Is just the 20th century, the 21st century. This is what you know, this is what you like. And there was this past, this tradition, but you think it's a relic of the past, a thing of the past. So you're wrapped up in the moment. The first expansion for many, many Jews, including myself, is realizing that we have this magnificent Jewish past and we need to reclaim it. We need to reconnect to it. And this is the broadening of our mind, of realizing, oh my God, I'm part of this amazing heritage, thousands of years old. There's all these amazing library of books of wisdom, and I want to connect to it. And this is the expansion of your mind. Now, I want to share with you an actual, real, semi-mystical experience or vision that I had in my early stages of tshuva. So when I was just making my first baby steps into Judaism, first I was an atheist and I didn't like spirituality. Then I opened to spirituality. Then I opened up to Judaism and I learned and I read some books. But at some point I realized Judaism isn't just books or theories. It's na'aseh v'nishma, we shall hear and we shall do. It's all about practical commandments, and there's a practical element to it that I need to connect to if I want to understand it. And I realized I need to observe a commandment, any commandment. And I wanted to do something that nobody can see, that it's personal. And then I got the idea, I want to say Shema before I go to bed. There's the Shema Israel saying, the most major credo of Judaism. And you also say it before you go to bed. So someone mentioned this to me, I bought a Siddur, and I was in my bed. And I have never, up until that point, never in my life have I said those 6 words, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, out loud in order. It just never happened. I never said a blessing. I grew up very secular. So I looked at the Siddur and I sort of memorized those 6 words. And so I could say them with my eyes shut, as is customary. And I put my hand over my eyes and I said Shema Yisrael for the first time in my life. And then something unbelievable happened. If someone would have told me it would happen, I wouldn't have believed them, but it happened. I had a vision, just immediately. I said those words and I had this vision. And the vision was that I was in the desert and I was looking downwards at my own 2 feet. I just saw my 2 feet on the sand, nothing else. And then, very cinematic, I sort of gradually lifted my head, sort of like the camera is tilting upwards, and I raised my eyes. And then all of a sudden I have this field of vision and I can see the whole desert around me. And I can see just a few feet away from me, there's people and more people behind them. And I realize there's a very long convoy of people going all the way into the horizon, into the far past, distant past. And then immediately what it was that I was seeing the Jewish people. It's like this chain of thousands of years old, all the way from the Exodus, coming from Egypt all the way to our generation. And I'm part of it. I was part of it. I was part of that convoy. I was with them. But I became distant in some way. My father, my grandfather, they distanced themselves. It was just 2 pieces out of this long chain. But I ended up being here, and I was wrapped up in my own little being, with my eyes on the ground and my own 2 feet. And I didn't realize they were there. But now I'm remembering them, and I want to join them. And this was an unbelievable vision, so simple and so profound and so, for me, life-changing, right? But now I realize it was the transitioning from the first smallness to the first greatness. I was absorbed in the moment, in the now, in the what's going on right now in the modern world. And then I realized I have this heritage, this past, and I expanded my mind looking backward into the future. But all this is still just the past. And in many ways, Judaism today, it's perceived by almost everyone as really a thing of the past. And the only dispute, the only argument going on is whether we should abandon that past or we should remain connected to that past. Or maybe we should regain, if we forgot it, we should regain. But it's all about the past. It's the wisdom of the ages, it's our tradition, it's this ancient wisdom, it's our forefathers, it's the Rebbes of old. And so the more secular people are saying, who cares about it? I want to put it behind me and go forward. And the more traditionalists or the conservatives, they're saying we need to just listen to the word conserve. We want to conserve the past. We don't want to be revolutionary. We don't want to be too liberal. We don't want to be right to let go of all these traditions, and we want to preserve them. And the reason is very simple. The reason is that looking forward into the future is disorienting and disheartening, because this is the valley of unknowing, and this is the second smallness. But there's no future if we don't plan a future, if we don't foresee and imagine and envision a future Judaism. What is Judaism like in the future? What is the future of the state of Israel? What is the vision? Is the vision just surviving? Is the vision just building a shelter for the Jewish people so that a second Holocaust wouldn't happen? Is that all there is to it? So it's just like you can't win a war without a strategy. In a way, I spoke before about being a manager versus being an entrepreneur. Bibi is famously coined the term to manage the conflict. He said, I'm managing the conflict. So managing the conflict, it's horrible. That's all about surviving in the present. Right? So first you had the founders of the State of Israel. It was all about negating the past, being in the moment. And then you have the more right-wing people, and this is going on all over the State of Israel. Is this revival of Judaism, of being aware of the past and appreciating the past and realizing we can't run away from our past. And this is wonderful. But we need to take the very sort of left-wing word, which is progress, which may be the way it's applied, it's wrong. But the idea that we need to progress, that we need to innovate and think again about the future and plan the future, not just manage the conflict like a manager, but be an entrepreneur. Reimagine the Middle East, reimagine the world, reimagine Judaism, reimagine what the Jewish people and the Jewish state can give to the world. And what happened was that another entrepreneur turned politician, non-Jewish, non-Israeli, Donald Trump, comes into the Middle East, and suddenly it's not managing, it's entrepreneuring. Suddenly he says, we can change the map, we can change the borders. Why are you thinking inside the box? You can think outside the box. And maybe he doesn't have our best interest in mind, and maybe he's coming from his own direction. But this is like a wake-up call for us to also be entrepreneurs and to think about the future. So basically what it means is that we need to be connected to a source of inspiration that's timeless. This is now looking forward to the second greatness, the second peak, which is pulling in from our eternal wisdom. It's not a wisdom of the past. It's not a nostalgic Torah. The Torah, we should think about the Torah as something that also isn't just coming from the past, it's also coming from the future. Today is the day of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, like I said, and the name Shimon, you can break it down into two words, which is Shim'u Nun. Listen to the 50th future day of the counting of the Omer. It's 7 weeks, 49 days, and there's the 50th day, which is also the 50th gate of this beyond our knowledge. We don't count it. It's the giving of the Torah. So we can think about, again, the Torah is coming from the past, but also is being broadcast from the future. In fact, when you think about it, the difference between the revealed level of the Torah and the hidden level of the Torah is that the revealed level of the Torah is very much, it comes from the past to the future. When you learn the revealed level, you go to the verses of the Bible, then you go to the Mishnah, then you go to the Talmud, then you go to the Rishonim, that's the first interpreters, and then to the Achronim, the later interpreters. It's all progressing from the past to the future because it's rooted in the past. The Torah was given once. That was the great generations. But in the inner dimension of the Torah, it's the opposite. You start with the Rebbe that speaks to your heart the most now. Why? Because he's coming from the future. The Torah innovation. The Torah that's being spoken now and appeals to you, this is the inner dimension of the Torah speaking to you, and this is like the future rungs, the higher rungs that you need to pull towards you in order to climb towards them and live them, right? So what I think, and this sums everything up, is that if we truly connect to the inner dimension of the Torah, which today is the day to celebrate, the day of the Rabbi Shimon, the day of the Zohar, is the way to connect to the Torah as a source of inspiration and vision of the future. We want to proceed and to advance to a future that's different from the past. We don't want to conserve the past. We don't want to repeat the past. We don't want to go back to the Judaism of old. We want a redemptive, messianic future Torah. We want to ask, what does it mean that the knowledge of God will fill all the earth like the waters cover the sea? What does it mean that everything that's considered secular or even profane becomes imbued with holiness? What does it mean that Judaism needs to be a light unto the nations? That we need to not just be sheltered in our own little nation state, but we want to be a lighthouse to all the nations. That's a totally different mindset. What does it mean that every being, great or small, shall perceive godliness? What does it mean that prophecy will be revived in some way, that we'll be able to see God and hear God in everything? And the source for this, the way to go from the second smallness to the second greatness, is to use all the Torah, all the first greatness, the Torah of the past, but we want to reorient it and redirect our gaze towards the future. So I leave you with this idea, this vision of what we call the Torah of Mashiach. Torah of Mashiach, it is said that all the Torah that we learned, all the Torah that we know from this world, is just like a fleeting vapor, like vanity, hevel, before, in relation to the future Torah that is coming from the future. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it inspired you. I hope you find in your own life how this 4 stages play out for you. And if you like the video, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, share the video, leave your comment below, tell me what you think, tell me how it connects to other ideas that you may have, you had. And until next week, I bid you Lag BaOmer Sameach, Shabbat Shalom, and I will see you in the next video. Hi everyone, if you enjoyed this episode, please press like, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. If you want more English language videos from me, please consider becoming a supporter via Patreon. You can find the link in the description below. Thank you very much, and see you in the next episode.